The lenses are, yeah. I'm Dave, and there's Tom. And here, play.
Welcome to Retired Time Productions.
In the previous video, which was part 2 of this Twin Star build series, we glued in the motor mounts, and then did a little testing with welder's glue on the Elipore foam. We glued in the wing spar using silicone glue on one half of the wing. Then we glued both halves together using clamps. John did a little testing to make sure it was strong. Then we glued in the wing retainer and the wing retainer screw plate. This is how I'm hinging my control surfaces. I've got my elevator right here that I've cut off from the horizontal stabilizer. What I did was I just took this cork metal ruler here and an X-Acto blade, laid the ruler in the slot, and then just cut right down the middle to separate the two halves. And then I'm going to glue in some pin hinges in about these locations here, and I'm going to use welder's glue to do it. I previously tested this on this plastic or on this foam to make sure it didn't deteriorate the foam, and it seemed to be alright. I'm just going to poke some slots right about where each hinge goes, put some glue on, and then poke them into the foam. So I put a hinge about 1.25 inches from each end of the wing right here, and I'm getting ready to put 2 more about 1 inch from the center part here where this horn goes in, 1 inch this way and 1 inch that way. So what I do is I've got the X-Acto blade here marked. You can see a little blue line. That's how deep I want to go. And I'm just going to take it, get it right in the center and perpendicular. Just dig in up to that line. Cut straight across. Trying to keep it as precise as I can so there's no binding in the hinge. And then after it's done, I just test fit the hinge in there like that. So there's all 4 hinges inserted into the elevator. And now we just need to mark the horizontal stabilizer and slot that appropriately, and then we can join them together with some welder's glue. The way I do the glue is I don't want to get a lot on there. What I do is I just put a little at the bottom edge right here. Don't get it near the hinge because we don't want to glue the hinge. Now as I push it in, what I'll do is I'll go in about 80% of the way and stop. Now there's going to be a little glue right there next to the hinge. What I do is I just take some Kleenex and wipe off any excess before I push the hinge in the rest of the way. Make sure all the excess is off, and then push it down the rest of the way so that the hinge is right, the pin is right against the wing, like that. Make sure this is perpendicular, and that's it. Okay, so I've pushed the hinges in part way first into the elevator, and then I applied glue at the very tip on both sides, pushed them all in about, halfway or so, wiped off the excess with a towel, and then pushed them in the rest of the way. And now we have a very easy to move hinge. This will be easy on the servo. Next, let's hinge the rudder. I'm going to lay my ruler in there, put it right against the vertical stabilizer, and then I'm going to cut right along the ruler. And that makes a nice straight line, as you can see right there. So I decided to use 3 hinges for the rudder. And surprisingly enough, even though I put a hinge right here at the horn, it didn't seem to affect the slot for the horn. And I think it's good to have one right at the position where the horn is at so that this part doesn't wobble at all. So now I'm just going to go ahead and make the slots in the vertical stabilizer, and then we'll glue everything in. Okay, that side of the rudder is glued. Now let's push it part way into the vertical stabilizer and put some glue on them. Okay, I put some glue right along the bottom, and now I'm going to push them in the rest of the way. Okay, pushed them in part way actually, and now I'm going to wipe off the excess glue before I push them the rest of the way in. Okay, all glued. And it's nice and flexible. So on the ailerons, I'm basically using 3 hinges. One on each end and one in the middle, and gluing it together the same way as the elevator and rudder. And there's the 3 hinges operating. Now these control horns basically just glue into a socket on the control surface like that. And I've heard that they can rip out, especially on the elevator. So what I've done here is I've gone ahead and drilled some holes into it like that, then just run 2 screws through, and on the other side I've got a piece of vinyl siding, a little hunk of vinyl siding that I drilled out, and then I'm just going to put 2 nuts on there with some Loctite. I'm going to use this blue Loctite to hold the nuts on. So I've applied a little CA to the horn right there, and I'm just going to push it into its socket on the elevator, and then I'm going to put in my 2 screws and my plate, which I made from vinyl siding, and the 2 nuts with the Loctite. So there it is, and that will be very hard for it to rip out of the foam. So on the rudder I didn't use the screws, I just glued it in with welder's glue, and it seems plenty strong. On the ailerons I did use the plate with the screws and nuts. That's vinyl siding, little piece of vinyl siding. And in case you were wondering where I got the screws and nuts, I got them from Radio Shack, and this is a package of them. They're assorted screws here, 3 different lengths, and you can see on the package what those lengths are. And these are the accompanying nuts that I also bought from Radio Shack. I got them about a year ago, so I don't know if Radio Shack still carries these, but if they do, they sure work great. Okay, now that the control horns are in, I have now configured the servos. So the servo basically just pops into the slot here, and you can put it in with a little bit of hot melt. This control rod here and the hardware came with the kit, so I didn't have to get that. They have some nice little keepers here for the control rod, and it's got a little Allen screw on the other end, and they provide the little Allen wrench to tighten the Allen screw. So what I did was I went ahead and just centered up my servo using my servo tester here like that, and the Hobby King servo tester has a neutral position. You just put it like that and it keeps the servo in the center, and then you can adjust the Allen screw right here and get it so that the control surface is nice and level. And after that you can just go ahead and test it. That's the auto mode, or you can put it in manual like this and just try it, see if it'll go full swing. Looks like I got plenty of throw there. Okay, now on the rudder what I did was I cut a hole into the foam right here just above this flange right here, and then ran the wire down through the middle, and did that the same way. So that will also work. And it just sits right into the fuselage right here, like that. Now you've noticed there's also another servo here. That's for the elevator. Now I've just cut a hole through the foam right here, just back from the vertical stabilizer, maybe about 3/4 of an inch. Cut a hole even with this flange right here, inserted it through there, and then ran the wire down through the middle. But then I had to cut a notch out of the vertical stab to fit over that. Now I saw this on RC Group, so this isn't new. I think there's a thread on the Twin Star on RC Groups, and this is the way it was done. So I'm just copying that, actually. Not new. And then of course our horizontal stabilizer just goes in this slot right here, down into there, and there's the horn for the elevator right there. And that'll just go down on this other side to its prospective servo right here. So that makes it pretty good, and the wires come right out here where you can run them down through the fuselage to your flight controller. Now, as I said, I use the Metal Gear servos for the ailerons. That's the Hitec HS82 Metal Gear servo. So that's on the ailerons and on the elevator, which is this one. But on the rudder, I use the 81. That's this one. For the ESCs, I'm going to be using the TurnigyPlush 30 amp. Now these are supposed to be good from 5.6 volts to 16.8 volts. So that means I could use either a 3 or 4 cell LiPo on this plane. Thanks to suggestions from my viewers, the EagleTree Vector Flight Controller is now on order. I have also ordered the EzUHF LRS 8-channel lite and the Vector Airspeed expander. Also ordered a couple of cables. Now the total cost on this is around $382, so that gives you some idea how this can add up. Now I just want to thank everybody for their comments and suggestions and help on this video, and stay tuned for more of this build series.
Here, play.